Hey guys, welcome to lesson number 4 in the Inequalities series here in Unit 4. Today we're going to solve inequalities using multiplication and division. So just be ready and aware that today you're going to learn one new rule in addition to all the stuff that you know already. So here we go. So 4x is greater than 12. This means 4 times x. So what is the inverse of multiplying by 4? So we're going to divide by 4. So what we're going to do for all three of these problems is solve them and graph them. So 4 divided by 4 is 1, leaving me with x is greater than 12 divided by 4 is 3. Okay, and then our graph. Remember, we're going to use an open circle because our inequality sign doesn't have the equal part. And we're going to move our arrow to the right because it's just greater than. Okay, so greater than means to the right. Here's my 3, here's my 2, here's my 4. Okay, for the next one, I have 3 times m is less than 15. So the inverse of timesing by 3 is dividing by 3. So these reduce. 3 divided by 3 is 1, so I'm left with 1m. Bring the inequality sign down. 15 divided 3 is 5. Draw my chart. Here's 5, here's 4, and here's 6. So I'm going to use an open circle again because we don't have the equal to part. So m is less than 5. So less than means we go to the left. Okay, so there's my graph. Right, it's just like Unit 3. The only difference is the inequality sign changes. Okay, and for the last one on page 1 of 3, m divided by 5. So the inverse of dividing by 5 is to times by 5. What I do to one side, I do to the other. These cross reduce. M is greater than negative 30. So we're going to graph. Here's negative 30, here's negative 31, and here's negative 29. Okay, so since my inequality sign doesn't contain the equal to part, we're going to use an open circle. Since m is greater than, greater means to the right, so that's how I draw my arrow. Okay, just one thing that I want to point out. Do you notice I divided here by a positive number? So I didn't do anything to the inequality solution. Do you notice here I divided by a positive number and I did not touch the solution? And do you notice here I multiplied by a positive number and I did not change the solution? Okay, that's going to be important when we get to the next page. So here we are on page 2 of 3. And just a property that we need to learn. So when we multiply or divide each side by the same negative number, the direction of the inequality symbol must be reversed for the inequality to remain true. So what does that look like? Well, if I take a look at negative 4 is smaller than 6, that's true. Negative 4 is less than 6. So here's negative 4. Oops, I don't want to do that. What I'm going to do to both sides is multiply by negative 2, what you see there in red. Now, negative 4 times negative 2 is 8. And negative 2 times 6 is negative 12. Do you notice here that I changed the inequality sign from less than to greater than because 8 is now greater than negative 12. So when I multiply, and this is also true for dividing, by a negative, I have to flip the inequality sign. Okay, here's another example. So 4 is greater than negative 6. True, 4 is larger than negative 6. I'm going to divide both sides by negative 2. So do you see how I'm dividing? I don't want to See how I'm dividing by a negative number? Okay, what is happening? If I leave the sign the way it is, I'm going to get negative 2. Oh, they already switched it. Never mind. Let's keep going from here. So negative 2 is less than 3. And that's true. Negative 2 is less than 3. And again, the only reason why the sign changed is because I'm dividing both sides by a negative. So I started greater, and I had to switch to less because of the division part, or the multiplication part of a negative number. So with that new rule in mind, let's go to the next page. So negative 2 times x is less than or equal to 10. So I'm going to divide. So the opposite of timesing by negative 2 is dividing by negative 2. Okay, so negative 2 divided negative 2 cancel, leaving me with x. Since I divided by a negative, I have to flip this sign. And 10 divided by negative 2 is negative 5. Okay, now we're going to graph. Here's negative 5, here's negative 4, and there's negative 6. Since it's greater than or equal to, that means it's a closed circle, so it's also equal to. Greater than means all the solutions to the right, including negative 5. All right, I'll be erasing number or letter A. Pause here if you need this work. All right, for letter B, I have negative 6x is greater than 0. I'm going to divide both sides by negative 6. So since I'm dividing by a negative number, I have to flip my inequality sign. So 6 divided by 6 is 1. So x flip 0 divided by negative 6 is 0. So when I graph, here's 0, here's 1, here's negative 1. Open circle, because my graph doesn't have the equal to part. Since x is less than, arrow to the left. Okay, I'll be erasing this down. If you still need it, pause now, please. Okay, here's example C. X divided by negative 4 is less than 1. So the inverse of dividing by negative 4 is to times by negative 4 times negative 4. So since I am multiplying both sides by a negative number, I'm going to flip this inequality sign. Okay, so negative 4 divide negative 4, reduce to 1, leaving me with x. Flip the sign, and 1 times negative 4 is negative 4. And my graph looks like this. Negative 4, negative 5, negative 3. I'm going to use an open circle because it's only less than, not less than or equal. And my arrow, since this is less than, is going to go to the left. Okay, and we have one more example and we're all set here. Okay, for letter D, I have x divided by negative 8, and that's greater than or equal to a half. Okay, so the inverse of dividing x by negative 8 is timesing it by negative 8. What I do to one side, I do to the other. Okay, these cross reduce to 1, leaving me with x. Since I am multiplying both sides by a negative, I do need to flip my inequality sign. So less than or equal to. These reduce to 1 and negative 1. So x is less than or equal to negative 1, because 1 times negative 1 is negative 1. and then we graph. Here's -1, here's -2, here's 0. So since it's less than or equal to, it's a closed circle this time. Less than means my arrow goes left. And there's your solution. Okay, guys, great work. I'll see you all tomorrow.